Well, the logic we had was that covers around 90% of deposit accounts. And so the focus for us has very much been on the everyday New Zealand depositor who, in the event of a catastrophic fail, and let's be clear, we're not expecting one of those,
Sure.
Would be able to access the money that they need to pay the mortgage and pay the bills. That's why we chose that range. 50,000 would give you the 90%. Yeah, does sit at the lower end of international comparators, although when you look at countries with similar GDP per capita and similar concentration of banking services, it's in the ballpark. But look, this is why we've made an in-principle decision. We can now talk about this. It is a balance. It's a balance between making sure we cover those everyday investors, but also deal with the moral hazard argument that you don't want to cover all the risk through a scheme like this, because people do have to understand the risks they're doing.
If we look at history and we look at the global financial crisis, and we saw New Zealand have to put in a very big deposit guarantee scheme very quickly, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because Australia did. Same thing would happen again, wouldn't it? If there was another GFC, you would have to step in.
Well, there's always an expectation on governments to step in. I absolutely accept that. What this is about is making sure that we've got some certainty about what the scheme looks like, rather than having to bring in an ad hoc kind of scheme. But also, let's remember, this is one tool in a financial safety net. The others are the banks themselves and the capital that they keep, the regulatory system that we've got, the rules we put around it, how we supervise those rules, and then the penalties. And so what we're trying to do through this whole Reserve Bank Act review process is actually get that full safety net. A deposit protection scheme is part of that, but it's not the whole picture.
Is there a risk that if you add in this levy, which the banks will have to fund, and presumably they may then charge more for interest rates or deposit rates, you add in the fact that banks are also being required to hold more money in their coffers, which could increase interest rates or deposit rates, that consumers are going to face higher borrowing costs and potentially get less for their money in the bank?
Yeah, well, look, this is about making sure that we do protect ourselves from the worst case scenario. And you've mentioned the global financial crisis yourself. We don't expect one of those to be happening anytime soon, but we do have to set up a system that's robust enough to be able to handle
and that could mean that consumers have to bear the cost.
Well, that'll be up to the way the scheme is designed in the case of the deposit protection scheme, and obviously where things land on the overall capital requirements. But, competitive forces will apply, and certainly when we look internationally, the kinds of levels of changes caused by a deposit protection scheme, for example, aren't that
Yeah, but
large.
You add on the possibility that they have to hold more capital in their bank vaults as well, and we've heard people talk about it adding thousands to people's mortgages. Is there a risk that you go again? I mean, the Reserve Bank's trying to cut interest rates to get the economy, keep it ticking along, that you work counter to that by forcing banks to put it up?
Yeah, look, I think you've got to get a balance in the system, the balance between making sure that what is a safe and sound banking system remains that, while also, making sure there's competition in the sector which drives good outcomes for consumers. I think we've got the balance about right where we are now. Also, bear in mind, for example, with the deposit protection scheme, you wouldn't bring that in one hit. You build up the reserves required for an insurance scheme like that. We want to work with the banking sector on how that gets created. They're, by and large, supportive of a deposit protection scheme. So our view is we can create a balanced system where consumers are protected and we have a healthy competitive sector.
Look.